Welcome, welcome, welcome to another Dank Times Danker Thoughts podcast with me, Angelo. This is episode number 80, the big 80. What's going on, everybody? It's the day before Thanksgiving. I took today off to see some friends that are visiting from out of town. And tomorrow, of course, I'll be seeing some family. And Friday, I'll do Thanksgiving round 2 with my old man. And then Saturday, I'll do Thanksgiving round 3 with my mother. So by Sunday, I'll be 20 pounds heavier. And just be wheezing in and out of my car and into the house. So, make sure to wear sweatpants and no buttons or zippers or anything with my pants. I'm just going to let it all just fly out of my disgusting meat sack of a body. So, what has been going on in the world? Well, I hate to say I told you so, but I told you, Rittenhouse, that kid was going to get off scot-free, and he did. And I really don't care what the hot takes are on the right or the left. I see people were losing their shit. Oh, this is racism. This is vigilantism. This is white supremacy. That's all on one side. On the other side, oh, he's a hero. It's self-defense. He should. Where was he during the other protests? And that'll teach those violent protesters a thing or two. And blah 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 blah. It's just another issue that's furthering dividing this already divided nation. And it really doesn't help that literally 2 or 3 days after his acquittal, he's on Tucker Carlson's show, which, again, Tucker Carlson is probably one of the top 5 biggest dividers in this country. And, of course, Kyle Rittenhouse just talking like any 17, 18-year-old would, just kind of making it up as he goes along, talking about he's not racist, he supports Black Lives Matter, Biden spit on his character, Durka. At the end of the day, I've already given you my opinion. He was an idiot for going to those protests with an AR-15. His mother is just as bad, in my opinion, for allowing this to happen, to driving him. I mean, you look at his mother, she looks like a South Park character. The prosecution was completely useless. They really fucked up big time. And I'm sorry, it just seems like a lot of people made a lot of bad decisions. Kyle Rittenhouse and his mother, and of course those protesters that saw this white kid with an AR-15 and thought, fuck that kid, I'm gonna go fuck with him. I mean, if I'm at a protest and I see a white kid with an AR-15, I'm probably going to walk the other way. I'm not going to shout obscenities at him or charge him or, in fact, throw shit at him. Does that mean those protesters should have been killed? No. But is it murder? No. Kyle was getting his fucking ass kicked. So anyway. That's my 2 cents. But I did find a good summary here from one of the main news sources that I get my news from. It is Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar. I get it on YouTube. And I'm just going to play a little snippet here for a couple of minutes. They do a really good job, in my estimation, about summarizing everything up with the Rittenhouse verdict.
All right, so guys, I'm going to be real with you. We didn't really want to talk about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, and there's a couple simple reasons why, at least this is from my perspective, you don't say if you feel differently about it, but the discourse around it was extraordinarily polarized.
Poisonous.
It's completely poisonous and very toxic, so that was one reason. The other reason is, I think, frankly, the stakes in this trial, in my opinion, were not either what they were being portrayed as on the right or the left.
I agree with you.
And so we didn't feel like we needed to wade into it because, frankly, we felt like there were other things more consequential to the future of the country going on. However, because the coverage has been so poor and so polarized and so tribal, we felt like we had a responsibility to sort through as best we can the facts of this case. And since we haven't covered it yet, we wanted to start from the ground up of just what we know confirmably happened on that night. As you guys probably know at this point, Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted on all charges stemming from he killed 2, wounded 1 other. This was during the protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin. So there's a couple things to sort through here. One is just the law, and that's probably the most clear-cut piece. And then there's the question of the morals, the ethics, the politics. That's where things start to get a little bit messier. So let's start with the law.
Goddamn right.
I thought Eric Levitz over at New York Magazine did a good job of just laying out the undisputable facts, undeniable facts of what we know happened on that night. So no speculation, no spin this way or that way. This is what we know happened on that night when Kyle Rittenhouse ultimately killed 2 and wounded 1. Let's throw this first piece of this up on the screen. So he says, before examining the substance of Rittenhouse's defense, it's worth reviewing the case's undisputed facts. Bystander cell phone videos established the 36-year-old protester, Joseph Rosenbaum, chased Rittenhouse into a parking lot, shouted "F you," and threw a plastic bag at his back, that a different protester fired a gun into the sky. Immediately following this shot, Rittenhouse ceased fleeing and turned around, that Rosenbaum then moved toward Rittenhouse, who proceeded to fire 4 times. Rosenbaum was killed. Those shots attracted the attention of nearby demonstrators. Let's put the next piece of this up on the screen. One ran up behind Rittenhouse and hit him in the head. Another kicked the gunman to the ground. Then 26-year-old Anthony Huber whacked Rittenhouse with a skateboard and appeared to reach for his rifle. Rittenhouse shot Huber through the heart, instantly killing him. Gage Grosskreutz, 28 years old, approached and pointed a handgun at Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse nearly blew Grosskreuz's right arm off. So really the key piece here, because of course what Kyle Rittenhouse and his defense team argued and what the jury agreed with them on, is that this could plausibly be self-defense. And I say it in those terms because in Wisconsin, as is the case in most states, the burden is on prosecution to disprove a self-defense defense.
That's right.
So he comes in, Kyle Rittenhouse, to this trial with effectively an assumption that this was self-defense, and the prosecution has to fully disprove it. And if there's even a reasonable doubt that it might have been self-defense, then what the law says is you have to acquit. You have to find in favor of the defendant. So that's the piece of the legal burden we can put. There's a little bit of New York Times analysis here that we can throw up on the screen, just indicating what I just said. When it comes to self-defense, the prosecution has a heavier burden. Wisconsin's rules for self-defense, they say, are well within the national mainstream. If people reasonably believe they're at risk of death or great bodily harm, they can use deadly force. Most states say that someone who provokes violence or is acting illegally waives the right to self-defense, but Wisconsin allows it if the person has exhausted every other reasonable means to escape from or otherwise avoid death or great bodily harm. So at the very beginning of this video, when the chaos and the mayhem unfolds, the fact that Rittenhouse is retreating, we don't know what happened before that. It's possible there was a product, we just don't know, okay? We don't have that on video. But at the very beginning of this video, when Rittenhouse is running away and he's being pursued, and he turns around and Rosenbaum, who he ultimately kills, moves towards him, the fact that he was retreating and that he was being pursued gave the jury enough to say, we believe this could reasonably have been self-defense, that he may have believed he was in danger of bodily harm. Obviously, this is fairly subjective because you have to take, what was in this person's mind and what factors were they wearing, et cetera, et cetera. But that is the law, that is the way it was written, and that's why legal analysts who were following this were not surprised, ultimately, that the jury found him not guilty.
That's right, and you'll recall, after those who watched Rising, my friend Richie McGinnis was actually on the ground. He actually interviewed Kyle Rittenhouse moments before all of this happened, and he actually tried to save Joseph Rosenbaum's life. He wrapped his head around it. So anyway, he was right in the thick of it. And I remember asking him at the time, I'm like, well, the facts of this are going to matter a lot. Richie actually did end up testifying in the trial, and it was very clear that under pretty standard self-defense law, that it was going to be a very difficult case for the prosecution. That's why if you'll look at what the prosecution went throughout the case, and I know there's been a lot of amateur legal analysts out there, which has been quite annoying, frankly, to watch. It was clear what the prosecution was trying to prove is that Rittenhouse himself rose above the barrier of provoking the incident. But they were always going to run up against the fact that they have on camera him fleeing the scene and then being pursued. And as long as that remains the case, under Wisconsin state law and pretty well-established self-defense precedent, it was just going to be a very difficult thing for them to be able to rise above. And there was also a question there around misdemeanor. They were like, well, they could have bumped it down, manslaughter, and all these other things. But that's not actually how self-defense works. It's not like a car accident where, like drug driving equivalates to one thing as opposed to like second-degree murder and felony. There's not like a lesser degrees. Like it's either self-defense or it's not. And so in that particular thing, what the prosecution, their Hail Mary was to try and get him convicted on a lesser charge. But if anything rises to the level of self-defense, it basically nullifies any other positive charge, which makes it so that, the facts of the case and all of that, the prosecution had an incredibly difficult job there. And look, I think they should. I mean, there's a legal precedent that we should establish that self-defense is a long-standing tradition. And there's also been a lot of talk I've seen online around stand your ground laws. Wisconsin is not a stand your ground state. Actually, they don't even have the stand your ground provision. So they have to basically prove that as long as the defendant, made a reasonable attempt to flee or to avoid a deadly situation, and then you act and use deadly force, and in a particular case, like somebody points a gun at you, so you have all that together, it was always going to be a very, very difficult problem.
So I could keep playing it. Then Crystal and Soccer go into the media issues with the case and Durka and the polarization and yada, yada, yada. If you guys want to keep watching it, I would just go to YouTube, type in Rittenhouse verdict explained, breaking point, and you'll find it. But they do a good job, in my opinion, about just telling you the facts of the case. So we move on to another verdict that literally just came through less than an hour ago, which is all 3 men that were charged with the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, which I talked about last week, have been found guilty. So, hallelujah. I've always said that this Arbery case, in my estimation, was much more important to the nation than the Rittenhouse verdict. The Rittenhouse has the emotion. That's it. This Ahmaud Arbery case has emotion and righteous indignation. You have corruption at the highest level in that Georgia County. You have ex-crooked cops, current crooked cops. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Well, let me read you from the Seattle Times here. Jurors on Wednesday convicted the 3 white men charged in the death of Ahmaud Arbery, the black man who was chased and fatally shot. while running through their neighborhood in an attack that became part of a larger national reckoning on racial injustice. Now, what's important to call out is that the three defendants, Greg and Travis McMichael, and their neighbor, William Roddy Bryan, said self-defense. This was self-defense, just like Kyle Rittenhouse, Durka. And there was another case, a third case I'll get to later, that has also been happening, evolving around self-defense, that's not getting a lot of press because it was a pretty slam dunk case. But they said, the McMichael and the neighbor Brian, that this was self-defense, they had to fight Arbery, blah, 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 blah. The fact remains, a black man is jogging, he was unarmed, and three white men in a truck with guns were yelling at him on the side of the road in Georgia. So what the fuck do you expect happens? Let me continue reading here. The convictions of Greg and Travis McMichael and Brian came after jurors deliberated for about 10 hours. The men face minimum sentences of life in prison. It is up to the judge to decide whether that comes with or without the possibility of parole. The McMichaels grabbed guns and jumped in a pickup truck to pursue the 25-year-old after seeing him running outside the Georgia port city of Brunswick in February 2020. Brian joined the pursuit in his own pickup and recorded cell phone video of Travis McMichael fatally shooting Arbery. The graphic video leaked online 2 months later. Though prosecutors did not argue that racism motivated the killing, federal authorities have charged them with hate crimes, alleging that they chased and killed Arbery because he was black. That case is scheduled to go to trial in February. Yeah, I don't think they'd be chasing a white man down the street. And there was a third case, which let me find, I believe it was in Florida, of a black man being found not guilty of shooting at police officers in a Trump county. And the reason I say Trump county is it was a county that Trump overwhelmingly won. So you have all your already biases. Oh, everyone who lives in that county must be white Nazis or whatnot. But it turns out, no, this didn't happen the way that you probably assumed it would, that you judged, your knee-jerk reaction. But let me go ahead and find that out here, that case. All right, I found the case. But before I get into it, I want to say one last thing about the Ahmaud Arbery case. Keith Boykin had a very good take on this, which AOC shared, and that's how I saw it. Remember, if local authorities in Georgia had their way, no one would have ever been charged for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. It took weeks of protests before charges were even brought in the case, 74 days after Arbery was shot and killed in February 2020. It is important to note. But anyway, let me get back to this case here. It happened in St. Paul, Minnesota. A St. Paul man has been acquitted on all charges in a jury trial stemming from an incident where he shot at Minneapolis police officers in self-defense last summer. Court records show 28-year-old Jaleel Stallings, a black man, was acquitted on Wednesday of multiple charges, including 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder, 2 counts of first-degree assault, 2 counts of second-degree assault, second-degree not riot, and intentional discharge of a firearm that endangered safety. And what did Jaleel Stallings' defense say? Self-defense, baby. The incident happened days after the murder of George Floyd by then Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. According to the original complaint, officers were allegedly patrolling near 15th... I'm not going to give the address here. When officers reached the area, they witnessed a group of people that allegedly dispersed upon seeing police. I wonder why a group of black males would disperse when police show up. Police then got out of an unmarked white van, sketchy, wearing full uniforms and special weapons and tactics, that's SWAT gear. Officers involved were assigned to deploy non-lethal rounds to attempt to disperse crowds as a curfew in effect at the time. They were already dispersing and they still shot them. This Minneapolis police SWAT unit, supervised by Sergeant Andrew Battelle, was directed to enforce the mandated curfew and disperse rioters, looters, and arsonists. The officers on that unit also were equipped with 40mm launchers and rounds of rubber bullets. Department policy states that the purpose of these launchers is to assist in the de-escalation of potentially violent confrontations. Instead, Battelli's group was equipped with black barrel 40mm launchers that evening. The weapons were also misused throughout the night by the unit, court records state. At one point, one officer fired a round at a group of protesters who were yelling at law enforcement from a distance. Minneapolis police officer Justin Stetson fired the rounds, at one point exclaiming, "Gotcha," and was heard laughing and fist bumping another officer. Just the bad apples. Those individual police officers were not participating in any of the events directed by the policy in order to do so, according to the court records. The unit was also directed to draw them in, hit them, meaning to have the protesters come closer to their unit and shoot them with the 40mm launchers, according to court documents. One officer called the protesters pussies after they retreated rather than approach the police unit, so they were instigating. The judge wrote the officers continued to harbor concerning beliefs through body camera footage that night. Police Lieutenant Johnny Murcell, who also testified during the Chauvin trial, said it was time to fucking put inaudible people in jail. You wonder what that inaudible word was. Just to prove the mayor wrong about his white supremacists from out of state. Oosh. Police Lieutenant Johnny Murcell also noted one group of protesters to be predominantly white, reasoning there would be no looting or fires because of their race. Another officer agreed with him, according to court documents. A unidentified officer gave orders to Patel, saying, "Fuck him up, gas him, fuck him up." Once the unit started making their way down Lake Street, Patel advised the officers, "The first fuckers we see, we're just hammering them with 40s. The driver was also instructed to approach with no lights or sirens activated on the cargo van. According to the court records, police approached the intersection of 17th, I'm not going to give the address, where they witnessed a group of civilians outside a gas station. Patel advises his unit to let them have it, boys. Officers then began to fire the 40mm rounds without notifying their presence. Afterward, police learned that the individual was gathered outside the gas station, including the owner and his friends protecting the property. However, the people knew they were not exempt from the curfew active at the time, including Stallings. Patel later testified he thought the group was looting. Yeah, because they were just standing around. Oh, Jesus Christ. Once the officer spotted Stallings, Patel informed his unit to hit him, as one rubber bullet hit Stallings in the lower chest area, according to court documents. After firing his weapon at the officers 3 or 4 times, Stallings, a military veteran, then realized it was police and put his pistol down and laid down on the ground. After police yelled, "Shots fired, shots fired." He didn't move for about 20 seconds as the officers approached. Body camera footage shows police kicking and punching Stallings while he was lying on the ground, as stated by the judge in court records. "You fucking piece of shit," Stetson yelled, kicking and punching Stallings in the head and neck. Patel was also seen kneeing and punching Stallings in the stomach, chest, and back. I need to point out again, Stallings, once he realized they were unmarked police officers, got on the ground and put his weapon down, and then the police beat the fuck out of him. The beating goes on for about 30 seconds before authorities placed him in handcuffs. Stetson reported afterward he may have broken his hand from the impact of hitting Stallings. Stetson also told responding officers after the incident that Stallings had been resisting, which was also reported in the original criminal complaint and release sent by the attorney's office. However, the body camera footage showed Stallings not resisting at any point in any way, the judge concluded. Additionally, police reported in the original complaint that Stallings ran away from law enforcement, which was not seen in the body camera footage. Lying fucking pigs. Police also claimed that the shot Stallings fired hit the van they were in. However, no bullet was recovered in it. After reviewing the footage, the judge granted the defense an opportunity to claim self-defense in the case. Stallings had a 5-day trial presided over District Judge Tamara Garcia. He was acquitted by the jury of all charges. As of Thursday, last week, there are no updates on whether any discipline will be handed down to the officers involved in this incident. Well, you kind of hope they will face something, because it sure sounded like a bunch of good old boys were just out there busting heads for no reason, instigating, trying to start shit, and when they found some black kids, they said, "Fuck it, let's start shooting." And let's also point out they were in unmarked vans, not wearing police uniforms, just nothing. I mean, what the fuck? So, you had 3 cases of self-defense. One with Rittenhouse. It's 50-50 to me, because Kyle Rittenhouse did go there to instigate. He did not go to that protest to murder. I believe that. The Ahmaud Arbery case, where the defendants said self-defense is why they murdered an unarmed black man, that was rightly struck down, and all three of those cocksuckers are going to spend the rest of their lives in jail, hopefully. And the third case with Lyle Stevens showed that, hey, you know, cops cannot just do whatever the fuck you want and then claim self-defense when all the evidence is contrary to that. So I think at the end of the day, once you take all of the emotion out and look at the facts, and you try to stay reasonably commonsensical, sound of mind, you can look at all three of these cases and say all three of them kind of make sense. With the Rittenhouse verdict, what you have to do is change the fucking laws. And then maybe you would have got this kid on a technicality, but I don't think Kyle Rittenhouse should have spent his life in jail. No, not based on what I've seen and what I've heard. So anyway, let's move on. I'm sick of talking about court cases and blacks shooting whites and police shooting blacks. I'm just over it. So let's move on to some happier stuff. Like, what the fuck are we going to do with the Seattle Seahawks? What the fuck are the Seattle Mariners going to do? And a little bit of updates with your boy's personal life here. Well, this has got to be one of the worst seasons of Seattle Seahawks football that I have ever experienced in my 35 years of being a fan. I'll probably say this is worse than Mike Holmgren's last year because we knew Holmgren was retiring and Hasselbeck was already in the twilight of his career. Sean Alexander was gone. We were already in basically semi-rebuild mode. And then Jim Mora came in. That clusterfuck year happened. And then the Pete Carroll era happened immediately after we fired Jim Mora after 1 year. Now, fast forward... is it 10 or 11 years that Pete Carroll's been here? It's been a while. And this is the first season under Pete Carroll. And this is including our first year when we were doing a complete overhaul rebuild. We somehow made the playoffs at 7-9 that year with the infamous upset of the defending Super Bowl champion New Orleans Saints with the now iconic Beastquake run of Marshawn Lynch. Fast forward to today, we are 3-7, 3-8, something like that. Any thought of a playoff contention, throw that out. It's not going to happen. Not with this team. At this point, I'll be happy to finish with 8 wins. I bet that we were going to have a 10-win season, a 10-7 season, and I don't think we're going to win the remaining 7 games to get to that. So... where do we go from here? My personal opinion is we have to do another complete overhaul rebuild because you strip away the emotion and the longevity of some of these players. And we do have, in my opinion, a few Hall of Famers on this team on both sides of the ball and players and coaches. I think Pete Carroll deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I honestly do. I think Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner are easily first ballot Hall of Famers. But you strip away all that. Who can you reasonably look at on this team and say we can rebuild with these foundational pieces? There's not a lot there. Because of the contract, you have to put Jamal Adams in there. I personally do not like the Jamal Adams contract. I don't dislike him as a player. I just think the Seattle Seahawks do not know how to use these high-priced, supposedly all-pro players. We never knew what to do with Percy Harvin or Jimmy Graham, and now you can add Jamal Adams to that list. We assumed that because they were good in one team, that's going to carry over on our team. It just hasn't happened. But we're stuck with him. He's here. I would put DK Metcalf on that list, obviously, even though he is a little emotional and he is going to get his penalties. But he is a dynamic playmaker. I don't know if there is another wide receiver that has his height and speed and physical toughness and everything. I mean, I look at the Julio Joneses, the AJ Greens of the world, top tier Hall of Fame talent. Now, I'm not saying DK Metcalf is a future Hall of Famer. This is only his 3rd season. So you have, Metcalf, you have Jamal Adams. I like Damian Lewis, the young offensive lineman. Our punter, Dixon, is very good. But that's it. I can't think of anybody else. There is no running back, no tight end, no offensive lineman besides Damian Lewis. And then I can't imagine that any pass rusher we have is worth a shit. I do like Poona Ford and Brian Monet, but are they rebuilding pieces? I don't know. You look at linebackers, Jordan Brooks is a great run stuffing linebacker, but he is a liability in coverage. He is not KJ Wright. He cannot guard tight ends or running backs or, dare I say, slot receivers. There is no corner on the team that fills me with confidence. And I look at the safeties outside of Jamal Adams. Do we want to re-sign Quandre Diggs at 29? I don't think so. And our kicker, Jason Myers, he's not something that I want to keep carrying over. So if you strip away all that, you may have, 5 players that are worth the shit going forward. So what I would do, if I was the new general manager of the Seattle Seahawks, I would seat Pete Carroll down and say, no offense, Pete, but you're 70-something. You're out of touch. Our defense has been getting worse and worse and worse, starting from 2015 to now. We've gone through how many offensive coordinators? Our offense is still nowhere near consistent. You have a quarterback that is, 30% of our salary cap? And even though I would love to see the likes of Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner play their entire career with the Seahawks a la an Edgar Martinez, that's just not realistic at this point. And to make things worse, we don't have many draft picks because John Schneider trades them away like they're not important. And when we do keep them, we get fucking busts like LJ Collier and Rashad Penny. I'm not going to put Jordan Brooks on the bust yet, but to me, he doesn't look like a first-round talent linebacker yet. It's only his second season. I'll give him 3 seasons. So, what the fuck are you going to do? I would call up 3 teams. And of course, Russell Wilson would have to approve these, but I would say we will trade Russell Wilson to either the New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins, or the Philadelphia Eagles. And I would even put Detroit Lions on there. Now, why would Russell Wilson want to go to 4 of the worst teams in football? Well, they are going to rebuild with him in mind. They will listen to him. Russell Wilson is a, top 5 marketable quarterback, dare I say player in football. Wherever he goes, you're going to get crazy coverage. And can you imagine the Detroit Lions basically saying, you know what, Russell Wilson, you tell us who you want to play with? That would happen. Now, the reason I picked those 4 teams is they have a bevy of draft picks. The Jets, at this point, have 2 top 10 picks in the upcoming draft. The Philadelphia Eagles have 3 first-round picks, and the Detroit Lions have 2, and the Miami Dolphins have 2. Now, another wrinkle to this is that all 3 out of the 4 teams, excluding the Detroit Lions, have young, so far unproven quarterbacks. The Jets drafted Zach Wilson, number 2 overall, but he looks horrific this year. Is that because he's a bad or he's a bust, or is it because he's on one of the worst teams in football and there's no one of talent around him on the offensive line? You look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts is, I would say, so far, he surprised me, but I would still say he's an average quarterback. He's learning, but he can run, and his arm is getting better. The Detroit Lions, of course, have Jared Goff, and I would not want to trade Russell Wilson for Goff, but I would trade him to get Goff and then flip Goff to get what you can. And then the 4th team, I already forgot what it was. Oh, the Miami Dolphins have Tua Tagovailoa. But again, he's a little bit like Jalen Hurts. He just hasn't really shown enough yet. So I would look at those 4 teams and say, we want your first-round picks and your quarterback. We will give you Russell Wilson, and then we can maybe offset some stuff with maybe another player. Maybe you want to trade it LJ Collier or Rashad Penny, or one of your linebackers like Cody Barton or something to see what could entice these players. Because now you have multiple first-round picks, and you have a quarterback that you maybe be able to flip or to see if they have anything left as potential. Now, Zach Wilson in a Seahawks uniform does not inspire confidence, but he may just need a fresh start. It almost worked with Sam Darnold. It did not work with Josh Rosen. Is Zach Wilson another one of those players? It could be. That's the likelihood. Zach Wilson would be a bust here as well. That's probably what would happen. But I would still take the chance. He was the number 2 pick for a reason. Now, if we could get 2 picks from the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, I think Hurts is better than Wilson from the Jets. So I would take that. For the Lions, I would want 2 first-round picks and a Jared Goff for Russell Wilson straight up, and then I would flip Goff to somebody, either the Washington football team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New Orleans Saints, a team that needs a proven quarterback that, again, Detroit is probably the worst team in football this year, maybe outside the Houston Texans. So I don't know if Goff is just that bad or he's just on a shit team. Although he was pretty bad with Sean McVay with the Rams, and Matt Stafford came over and was doing pretty good. But now the Rams offense is kind of iffy, so who the fuck knows? And then the fourth team, Miami Dolphins, I would want Tua Tagovailoa. And I think Tua would be a great quarterback with the Seahawks. But I still would want those 2 first-round picks. And I'm also open to trading the Bobby Wagners, which kills me inside, the Chris Carsons, if he can ever play football again. As much as it pains me to say, Tyler Lockett, even though he just signed an extension, I would be open to trading him and maybe offsetting some of the dead cap money by getting a higher draft pick in compensation. But that's really about it. I mean, who else do the Seahawks have that other teams would want? Dwayne Brown's old as fuck. We have Gabe Jackson we traded for the right guard, but he's 30-something. Are you going to get anything out of him? Both Gerald Everett and Will Dissly, our tight ends, are free agents, so you can't trade them next year. Do we have anybody on the defense that has any trade value? Alton Robinson, Darrell Taylor, maybe. And I would not trade Poona Ford or Brian Monet unless I was getting overwhelmed by a trade offer. And Quandre Diggs, like I said, is a free agent. And Jamal Adams, the dead cap money would be a killer. So that's what I would do if I was in charge of the Seahawks. You got to get as many draft picks as you can. And this draft is pretty good in some areas. It's not so good in the quarterback. So that's why I would want to get a quarterback, at least for a rental or a 1 year, because the 2023 draft is going to be loaded with top quarterback talent. So they say now. I think we could do 2022 with a Zach Wilson, with a Tua Tagovailoa, or a Jalen Hurts. And God help us if it's Jared Goff. But I think with just 1 year of rebuilding, if we stockpile draft picks in all the rounds and try to accumulate as many as we can and build up the offensive and defensive lines, we'll be contending probably 2023. Because that's what happened when Pete Carroll first took over, guys. Don't forget, Pete Carroll took over and we overachieved, went 7-9, went to the playoffs. The next season we had a winning record but still missed the playoffs. And then it's been Gold City ever since until this year. So that is what Angelo Grosso would do with the Seattle Seahawks. Tear it down, get a new young coach. I love Pete Carroll. He should be in the Ring of Honor. He should be in the Hall of Fame. And I feel the same way about John Schneider. I don't know if John Schneider belongs in the Hall of Fame, but he definitely belongs in the Ring of Honor. They're out of touch. We haven't nailed many draft picks lately, DK Metcalf being the exception. And we give up the farm for proven talent that then suck balls when they come here. So Schneider's got to go. Pete Carroll is just out of touch. He's got to go. We have to get younger. You look at the coaching in the NFC West, the Arizona, Los Angeles, and San Francisco coaches are all young. They're all new ideas, and they're all, pretty good teams. Even San Francisco looked dead in the water, and now they look like they're contenders. So I don't know what head coaches are out there that I would make an offer to. I would look at some of the more winningest teams and maybe prize some of their offensive or defensive coordinators, like the Titans or the Chiefs or the Bills. Or I don't want to go with anybody within the NFC West because we got fucked over by Shane Waldron. I think, who knows, Shane Waldron may have a perfect offensive game plan, but Pete Carroll says, no, we're going to do it my way. So who knows if Shane Waldron's to blame for our offensive woes. But yeah, I would want to get younger. I wouldn't want to get a coach that has no experience out of college. That doesn't work out very often. So that's what I would do with the Seahawks. Now, going to another sports team, the Seattle Mariners, free agency has started. The hot stove is a-boiling, and the Mariners are rumored to be signing a lot of the big-name talent. I still hope that we sign 2 starting pitchers and 2 offensive players at least. I think that if we sign 2 starting pitchers to be a 3 and a 4 in the rotation, which we're going to have a 6-man rotation, that would work out greatly, even because we do have young talent coming up, but they're just unproven. Baseball prospects have more bust than boom. It's not like other sports where basketball and football, odds are your top prospects are at least going to play right away, and the bust percentage is lower in those sports as compared to baseball, where it's much, 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 much higher. I still hope that the Mariners sign Chris Bryant to play third in the left field. and maybe Marcus Simeon. There's that Japanese outfielder we're looking at. And I know Oakland is looking at rebuilding, and they have a lot of talent that's available for trade. So I'm excited. I still am hoping 2 offensive players, 1 infield, 1 outfield, or 2 infield, 1 outfield, and 2 starting pitchers. And if we can get that done before the labor union strike, then I can rest easy knowing that the Mariners will, on paper, should be more competitive than they were last year when we almost made the playoffs with a team full of scrubs. So it's not all doom and gloom in Seattle sports, okay? Seahawks rebuild. Mariners just finished their rebuild, and it's time to go ham. The Huskies suck balls. Wazoo is doing okay, but it's not really a fun time to be a Seattle sports fan at this time. The Sounders got kicked out of the playoffs. The Kraken lost 7 in a row or some bullshit before they upset one of the best teams in hockey. Was it the Capitals? It doesn't matter. But anyway, let's move on from sports before all my listeners go into a coma and swallow their tongue. All right, so let's talk about some personal stuff. What is going on with Angelo? Well, I'm glad you asked. Some good news, some bad news. First, the bad news. It sure looks like, well, let me rephrase. We are canceling the Germany Christmas trip. Oh, wow. I'm actually quite upset about this. I understand why. There is a massive COVID spike that was happening in Eastern Europe that has now spread to Germany. I, being the stupid American I am, just assumed Germany, being one of the quote-unquote smarter nations in the world, would have a very high vaccination rate. That is not the case. They're actually some of the lowest in Europe, sitting in the low 60%. To compare it with America, the last I looked, we were at 77 or 78%. And I do have some friends that live in Germany that have been telling me for the last week and a half, that things are not looking good. I had one friend that said, you know what, I don't think I can meet up with you guys because I live at home with my parents. They're old as fuck. They're sick and frail. Even though we're vaccinated, I can't take the chance, which it sucks because I haven't seen this person in over 10 years, but I understand family first. But then I started hearing from more of my connections out there, and it just doesn't look good. The CDC came out and said we do not recommend U.S. travel to Germany right now. And just over the weekend, I saw that a bunch of the Christmas markets and businesses are closing or canceled, and that a lockdown appears imminent. So I spoke with my 2 traveling companions, and we all kind of agreed, what's the point of going if nothing's going to be open and you're just wandering around a foreign country? The cancellation of the tickets is way more difficult than it should. Fuck you, airlines. I don't know why I can't pull up my tickets and hit cancel and get my refund within a few business days. But they can go fuck themselves, because it sure sounds like they're going to tell us, well, we can't give you a refund because greedy corruption cunts, and we're going to just let you have this basically gift card balance for 1 year. Well, go fuck yourself. Who knows what things are going to be like in a year? So I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping I just get all my money back and then we can plan for another trip in a couple months. I'm not against going to Germany sometime in the spring. However, Christmas would be the best time for me. So that kind of sucks, but I can't really get that angry because, you know, if they're averaging about 40,000 cases a day. And they have a very high unvaccination rate, and it's kind of shocking to me that is happening. So Germany is not happening. Now, some good news is that over the last few weeks, I've been talking to a few different ladies, and I had a bunch of dates set up. Now, one I met first, she is a 20-year-old. And before you guys think, oh, god damn, Angelo, you're robbing the cradle, I have talked to her about this many times, about the age difference. It's not that big of a deal, it turns out. I know what I was like at 20. I was a goddamn savage. And if I'm being brutally honest, my 20s were really 19 to like 26, 27 were probably some of the worst times of my life when it comes to the opposite sex, dating, life, liberty, justice, the pursuit of happiness, all that stuff. I was just not in a good place. And a lot of that stemmed from women didn't want to fuck me. Women were not interested in dating me. I just wasn't a attractive option to women my age. Looking back, I can understand why. We don't have to get into that, but basically it's immaturity. I had confidence issues, a lot of things. And I was always upset when I was, 19, 20, 21, 22, when I would ask girls out, they weren't interested. And then I would see them with older guys and I would hate the girls, judge the guys, blah, 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 blah. Well, now that I'm that guy, I can understand why younger women would be attracted to me based on the men their own age. So I went out with her. We had a good time. We went out a second time, pretty much spent a whole day together on the second date. And we were talking a little bit about some of the kind of big issues, some mental stuff, some emotional stuff, what our dreams and aspirations are, because, a 20-year-old's dreams and aspirations are different than a 35-year-old's, or at least they should be. But I'll be damned if we had a lot in common. The only obvious major difference is just life experience, life knowledge. But I'm a nice guy. I'm honest, truthful, open. I'm vulnerable. I don't like to play fucking mind games or anything. So I told her, because of some age differences and some other issues, we're going to take it slow, but I do like to get to know you. And we started talking a lot more. Third date, she came over here and she ended up staying the night. So we're going to see how it works out. We're still at that, beginning intro phase, just kind of feeling each other out. But the date did go so well that I canceled the other dates. We'll see how that goes. But with the Germany trip being canceled, I now can spend my time and finances in other places. What else has been going on? Oh, I did go to a poetry reading over the weekend with one of my best friends. And of course, I'm drawing the blank on the poet's name. Let me pull that up here. By the way, if you have not ever gone to a poetry reading or any kind of reading, I highly recommend it. If you like, books and poetry and all that shit. Her name was Katerina Canyon. And the reading was at the Oh Hello Again bookstore in Capitol Hill. Could you have made a more hipstery name for a bookstore than Oh Hello Again? The poet's name again was Katerina Canyon. That's Katerina spelled with a K. Canyon, like the Grand Canyon. I bought her book that was illustrated by her eldest daughter, and good God, some of her poetry make me kind of get watery-eyed. It was shorter than I expected. I thought it was going to be about an hour-long reading, but it was about a half hour or so. I chit-chatted with her before and after. I got her autograph on the book, and it was an all-around really great evening with my friend. We went to a great restaurant before, had a good drink, had a dynamite chicken sandwich. And after that, we went back to his place. Him and his wife have a brand new home, and I was happy to see it out in West Seattle. We watched a movie which was surprisingly good. I didn't think it was going to be that good because I'm a judgy little bitch. But if you get a chance to watch the movie on Netflix, what the fuck is it called? Shot Caller. 2 words. Like you call your shot. And the star is Nikolai Walder-Costo. Not Tyrion Lannister. Who the fuck's the Lannister from Game of Thrones that lost his hand and was fucking his sister? That guy. Not. Why can I only think of Tyrion and Cersei? The other, the brother, the other twin. You know who I'm talking about. The guy that Brianna Tarf. Anyway, he was a star. He was excellent in it. Excellent. There was a bunch of good character actors that helped out a little bit, and overall, I was expecting maybe a 2.5 movie. And I gotta say, I'd probably give it a 3.5. So if you have about 2 hours to kill and you're looking for a new movie, check out Shot Caller on Netflix. It's about a white-collar guy. He gets in a very bad car accident, killing somebody. So he has to go to prison with, real prisoners. And I won't spoil the rest. So I highly recommend that movie. And, well, what else has been going on here? I gotta give it up to Pete Davidson. I mean, that guy pounds more top tier pussy than anyone I'm aware of. Maybe outside Leonardo DiCaprio. But you look at who he's with now. Kim Kardashian. He was with Ariana Grande. And I think he was with somebody else that was uber famous back in the day. And he's only like, what, 23? And apparently he's got a hog on him. But Ariana Grande and Kim Kardashian already like top tier females in this country and the world. I mean, I think if you go to any country in the world, it doesn't matter if they're in the jungle, the desert, third world, first world, second world, it doesn't matter. Most people know who Ariana Grande is, and everybody knows who Kim Kardashian is. So I started to think, who possibly could he pound that would outdo the popularity of Ariana Grande and Kim Kardashian? You think Beyonce, but she's with Jay-Z. So then I thought of, well, Oprah is probably the number one female in this pop culture, or Michelle Obama, but Michelle Obama is of course married to Barack. So I know Oprah's quote unquote married to Stetson, or is that his name? Stetson? Steppen? You know who I'm talking about, that motherfucker who we never see. I think Oprah is the only gash he hasn't smashed that is more pop culture popular than Ariana Grande and Kim Kardashian. I mean, who else is high? Who's better than those three? Maybe Lady Gaga, maybe Taylor Swift, maybe Miley Cyrus, but again, Kim Kardashian and Ariana Grande kind of, I would say Miley Cyrus is above Ariana Grande in terms of popularity. Taylor Swift's up there too, but Oprah is your clear number one. Who else? I'm trying to think of anyone who has more power, pull, and sway in this country than Oprah. I mean, Oprah puts her name on anything, and it's going to be a bestseller. That fucking Oprah Book Club sticker has uplifted a lot of mediocre books. God, who else? I can't think of a politician or a movie star. Meryl Streep, maybe? Oh, God. Pete Davidson banging Oprah and Meryl Streep. Certainly, athletes. Are both of the Venus and Serena, are they both married? Because I'll put them up there. Who else? I can't think of another famous female athlete. That's bad on me. You're just sexist, man. That's the fucking patriarchy talking. Soccer players. Rapinoe, she's gay. I think Sue Storm's gay with her, and she's not a big name outside of Seattle, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Aaron Andrews, a sports commentator. Honestly, the only other person that's coming to mind now is Hillary Clinton. Can you imagine Pete Davidson dumping Oprah and rebounding with Hillary Clinton? But the funny thing there is Pete Davidson could never dump Hillary Clinton because she would have him killed. Oh, I kid. But Pete Davidson, man, you know, if I ever meet you, I'm going to pull your pants down. I'm going to get you a semi-hard, and then I'm going to salute your semi-hard cock because, you know what, in fact, I would just shake it like it's a hand because what I've been told is that hog is big enough to have its own elbow. So I think if you have an elbow, you probably have a wrist, and then I can shake your cockhead. And I would say, God bless you, sir. God bless you. We should put Pete Davidson and Leonardo DiCaprio on our goddamn money. Oh, God, but with that, I think we can wrap up here. All right, I think we can wrap up here. Last thing I'll say is that Thanksgiving is tomorrow, and I hope everyone stays calm, cool, and collected. If you have a family that likes to argue and fight over stupid bullshit like politics and religion and anything else that is dividing us. So what I think a good game plan is, if you live or have family that is like this, once you walk in the house and you shut the door, you turn to your family and say, okay, for 10 minutes starting now, let's talk about all the things we disagree on. Just get it out of the system. Let the purge happen. Let them yell at you about how Trump may have won the election. Let them say Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero. Obama is still not from this country. Or on the other side, you have a bunch of crazy lefties yelling about how police are racist, that math is racist, that critical race theory, you want to separate the kids by gender and race, and just nonsense. Just get it out of your system now. and say, okay, are we done? Okay, let's go eat a goddamn turkey. Speaking of Thanksgiving foods, I will tell you, in my humble opinion, what my favorite Thanksgiving side dishes are. Now, we all know the bird is the big deal with Thanksgiving and the stuffing. So I don't consider the turkey or the stuffing a side dish. It's the main goddamn course. I will tell you what's overrated on Thanksgiving is cranberry sauce and mac and cheese. No. First off, cranberry, go fuck yourself. It's a poor excuse for the only vegetable in the entire Thanksgiving dish. No, you're a sad excuse for vegetable cranberry sauce. Get the fuck out of here. A mac and cheese, I'm sorry, that's not a Thanksgiving dish. It's a picnic dish. It's a ball game dish. It's something you have at a fancy restaurant. Maybe you have some shrimp in there, some breadcrumbs, maybe some fancy cheese like Gouda or Havarti. Oh, my mouth is watering. God damn, I miss mac and cheese. My favorite dishes are that sweet potato or yam dish. Again, I don't know the difference between sweet potatoes or yams. Are they the same thing? I don't fucking know. But that dish where you have the burnt marshmallows on top of the sweet potato yams, oh goddamn, that's good. I like green bean casserole if the onions on top are crunchy. I like deviled eggs, probably my number one dish. Gravy, it's hit and miss with me. I have to be in the mood for gravy. Brussels sprouts are good. And what else? You know, a lot of people like to have a lot of bread on Thanksgiving, but if you're having stuffing, that's all bread. Do you want to double up on carbs? I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe you're a fat fuck like me and love bread. But anyway, on that happy note, I hope you guys have a good Gobble Gobble Turkey Day. And don't do anything I wouldn't do. Take it sleazy. Treat others as you want to be treated. And yeah, just don't start shit at Thanksgiving. Maybe if you're with some cooler cousins, or maybe there's a cool aunt or uncle, bring a J, go outside, light up a J, start sharing it. And that's when you want to talk about politics or religion. The deep stuff is when you're getting high or you're getting tipsy and you're talking to the nice people in your family. But before I end it, I want to play a quick video of why I love Bernie Sanders and why I believe he is the best politician we've had in the last few decades. You compare him to the last few presidents, the Trumps, the Bidens, the Obamas, the Clintons, the first Bush, the second Bush. They're all fucking scum compared to Bernie. And let me play you a video why. This is in regards to the new outrageously high defense bill that's probably going to get passed without even a debate. But here's Bernie Sanders talking about why he's voting no on the exorbitantly high defense bill.
I wanted to tell you briefly why I'm voting against the defense bill, which is $778 billion. I find it very strange that many of my colleagues are very worried about the deficit, the national debt, when it comes to the needs of working families, the children, the elderly, the sick, the poor. Oh my God, we can't afford to do anything. Deficit is so big, national debt is so big. But wait a minute, when it comes to the military-industrial complex and the defense bill, $778 billion for 1 year, and that is $35 billion more than Trump's last budget, $25 billion more than President Biden wanted. Well, that's okay. We'll pass that. Don't worry about the deficit defense bill. Then, on top of that, what is likely to happen is they're going to attach another piece of legislation called the Competitive Act, and that is $250 billion. And in the midst of that, there is $52 billion going to a small number of microchip companies. Now, I think we do have a microchip crisis in this country. Very important. We're going to produce them in America. But you just don't hand out corporate welfare to a handful of very profitable companies. You make sure there are some strings attached so the taxpayers don't get ripped off. And oh yeah, I forgot. Also attached to this bill is $10 billion to our good friend Jeff Bezos to help them get to the moon. So there you have a bill loaded with corporate welfare, significantly adding to our deficit. Very little discussion about it, especially from the so-called deficit hawks. Thank you.
Woo! You tell him, Bernie. We just got out of Afghanistan too, and yet we're still going to pump more money into the defense bill, more than what Trump had, more than what the Biden administration asked for, and we're giving all these bailouts to the fucking rich people. God damn! Anyway, that's what you can talk about at the Thanksgiving dinner. All right, with that, we are done. And I will see you guys around the bend, and I hope you all have a good Gobble Gobble Turkey Day.